When the 41st President of the United States, George Herbert Walker Bush, died last weekend, his life and times were celebrated by his legendary collection of friends and admirers. But as pointed out in an article on LibertyNation.com by Lisa K. Donner, also by many opponents and a media which was hardly so generous with their praise when he was in office. As much as any other president, the legacy of Bush 41 can best be encapsulated by his own words, or more precisely, the verbal expressions that define the man. I'm Tim Donner with 5 defining quotes from the late George H.W. Bush.
Read my lips. No new taxes.
Quote 1. Read my lips. No new taxes. This promise not to raise taxes contributed to Bush's decisive victory over Michael Dukakis in the 1988 presidential election. But it was also a promise Bush broke once elected by signing off on a deal to raise taxes in return for Gulf War funding. And that led to his embarrassing defeat at the hands of Bill Clinton in 1992 and his legacy as a one-term president.
I want a kinder and gentler nation.
Quote 2, a kinder, gentler nation. Even though it seemed clear that Bush was elected to a virtual third term of one of the most consequential presidents in American history, Ronald Reagan, Bush was a more moderate, establishment Republican, intent on setting a different tone. His domestic legacy revolved around his signature 1,000 Points of Light program, and he was the driving force behind the Clean Air Act and Americans with Disabilities Act.
It is a big idea, a new world order, where diverse nations are drawn together in common cause.
Quote 3, a new world order. Bush seems certain to be viewed by historians primarily as the president whose stewardship of the spoils of victory in the 70-year Cold War, accomplished through the unshakable leadership of Ronald Reagan, Margaret Thatcher, and Pope John Paul, was restrained and orderly. As critics blamed him for refusing to declare victory for our way of life and celebrate the demise of an evil empire, Bush stood resolutely in the shadows of that trio of giants who preceded him and commenced the shaping of what he called a new world order, or global establishment.
This will not stand. This will not stand, this aggression against Kuwait.
Quote 4, this will not stand. In addition to stabilizing the world following the collapse of the Soviet Union with his New World Order, Bush publicly condemned Saddam Hussein's invasion of Kuwait and then assembled a diverse coalition of nations to launch the Gulf War aimed at removing the Iraqis. The war was won with overwhelming shock and awe in the space of 100 hours and left Bush at the pinnacle of his presidency with 90% approval from the American people.
We have a question right here.
Yes, how has the national debt personally affected?
And quote 5, when will this be over? Okay, this last one is not a quote, but an enduring image of Bush's failure to cash in on his popularity following the Gulf War and his ultimate political collapse. He was thought to be out of touch with real life, and when he was caught looking at his watch during a debate with challenger Bill Clinton, it sent a message that he was not engaged or passionate about re-election, and he was beaten easily by the then governor of Arkansas. So those are 5 defining quotes from the late George Herbert Walker Bush, a transitional president whose death brings to a symbolic end a political dynasty that produced 2 presidents and stretched all the way back to 1952 when Bush's father, Prescott Bush, was first elected to the U.S. Senate. Please subscribe to the LibertyNation.com YouTube channel where you can catch all our video offerings, not just 5 facts, but our LNTV roundtables, author interviews, podcast, radio show, and more, all on the LibertyNation.com YouTube channel. I'm Tim Donner. Thanks for joining us.